Patrick Bitature, Chairman, Simba Group of Companies. His topic that he has been given is Women and Youth-Focused SMEs, Finance and Technology Options. Is Patrick online?
Thank you, Charles. I would like to begin by salutations to everybody, those who are online and those who are at the Sheraton. And also I'd like to thank in a very special way Human Capital for organizing this annual event. This is not the first time, and I've been invited before. And I think it's useful and it's growing. It's growing in momentum, it's growing in impact. The number of people now talking about it. So we really support this initiative. And I want to thank in a special way Emmanuel Daitumi for this very passionate initiative of his. He's really committed. So I thank you. And I'd like to start there. I don't know if my presentation can come up on screen. Am I a co-host? If I can put up my presentation, it will guide us through the discussion.
It has come on.
Good. Now, fortunately, most of the presenters who have spoken before me have done a commendable job. And I've listened to several of them yesterday and today. And they've talked about the role of women and youth. They have highlighted the importance. They've even talked about financing. So my work is really cut out because they've talked about technology. So there's very little I can add to that. And so I'm going to go off the normal conventional repetition of what has been said and try to get to people to see things a little bit different, how I see them, having spent 2 days listening to about the role of women and youth and the importance or significance that they can play. So I begin by asking, why are we where we are? Especially as a country, Uganda, number 160 something in the rankings out of 190 something countries as the poorest countries. We are very low in that country, in that ranking. And as a continent, Africa, why are we lagging so far behind? The main thing is, what makes those who succeed, succeed? What helped them to change? The world was more or less the same 150 years or so ago. America was not as powerful as it is today, nor was Asia, Europe, but they've all moved in large strides, in leaps and bounds. But Africa has almost, I won't say stagnated, we have made progress, but we are so far behind. And the same thing applies to individuals. Whether you are an SME or as an individual person, you need to persevere. There's going to be no shortcut. And all those who have gone before us have persevered, at times at the expense of others, at times at our expense, but they have persevered. So let's look at the demographics. Today, Africa makes up 16% of the world's total population. And by the year 2050, they will comprise 25%. Some people say that in 2050, the population should be about 10 billion, going by the current trajectories. Others put a maximum of 16 billion. Now, if we're at 25% of the 16 billion in Africa, that means 4 billion people by the year 2100. So that is a scary number. And these are projections made by scientists. So anyway, 80% of the population growth is said will accrue in the urban areas. So there's going to be rapid urbanization. How are we going to check this urbanization? It could be a good thing, it could be a bad thing. By 2050, the 10 biggest cities in the world will be in Africa. Today, we're looking at Cairo, we're looking at Lagos, we're looking at Kinshasa. These are cities that are already struggling at the beams because the social infrastructure cannot support the number of people there. So I would rather that we think about things from that point of view, the demographics. Now, when I talk about a demographic tailwind, that means you've got something that is supporting you, artificially or naturally there to support you. Imagine it's a plane. When you have a tailwind, it helps you arrive quicker with less fuel burnt, and it helps you achieve your objective. You can have what they call a headwind when you're working against it. Now, having a big population should be a tailwind. Our demographic shows that we're going to be the labor, the manpower, the human capital for the world in the coming years. But unless it's skilled, unless they know what they're doing, unless we are progressive, all the gains that we make, all the increase in incomes at the economic, at a macro level are wiped away because of the demographic growth. We are growing way too fast, and that is a liability. I take you to what I call the first industrial revolution. The first industrial revolution was about 170 years ago. And that was when mankind shifted from emphasizing muscle power to steam power. But in Africa, we're still using hose as the primary tool to fend for our families and for survival. The hoe is the most primitive tool for agriculture. And so long as we keep using it and depend on it, we are not going to have change. So to change the social infrastructure, to change the landscape, we've got to move away from muscle manpower. We use muscle manpower. That's all we do. We've got to move to the internal combustion engine, tractors, vehicles. We've got to move to technologies. And we'll talk about the second industrial revolution and the third briefly. But the main thing is all the gains we make on the top line are wiped away by the population. Now, in Africa, an approximation has been made of the number of babies born every year, and there are about 32 million new babies. In Uganda alone, we are nearer to the number of 2 million every year. Now, these people are going to be joining the workforce at about 16 or 18 or 20, depends on where their level of education stops. Where do we put these people? We are certainly not creating jobs fast enough. And so everyone's putting emphasis on SMEs, but SMEs are not a walk in the park. Doing business is extremely hard. There are many vagaries. Uganda is touted as one of the countries that's most entrepreneurial. So many businesses start, but how many survive the first year? Very few make it to the second year, even fewer to the fifth year. So the attrition rate is extremely high because business is hard and nobody's emphasizing it. We're telling all these young, unsuspecting students as they graduate at graduation day, go out and start a business, create jobs for yourselves and for your colleagues. Easier said than done. I've been in business long enough to know it's extremely hard. But at the same time, I'm a champion of entrepreneurship. I encourage young people to get into business, however hard it is. So what is it that's lacking? What have we got to change? First, of course, we've got to change our attitudes, but a change in attitude is easier said than done. A change in thinking, and that means at an early age, start changing the thinking while you're still in school, and then set it. It must be quite firm, and that will lead to a change in behavior. If you think at the day you graduate, you can change your attitude and change your thinking, it's going to be an uphill task. I'm not saying it's impossible, but it's an uphill task. But if you could change earlier and start focusing, I was fortunate. By the time I was 16, I knew exactly what I wanted to do. And if it wasn't going to be politics, it was going to be business. And I wanted to scale in business. And I had focus. So I changed my thinking. By the time I finished my studies, my behavior had changed. I knew exactly what I was going to do. Now, the danger with our societies, especially in Africa, we expect socioeconomic transformation to work because we have snapped our fingers. It will be zero unless we include women and youth. Now, the current government today, NRM, is talking about socioeconomic transformation. Unless they put women and youth at the forefront, and this is what they should have been doing a few years ago, if it was going to happen now, we will not achieve our goals easily. It's going to be an uphill task. So what is it that takes for people to succeed? What are the habits you need to inculcate while you're still young? Number one, I say, is goal setting. If you don't set objective goals, they must be realistic objective goals. And then you focus on those goals. I mentioned that I set my goals when I was 16. I'd had a rude awakening at 13 when my father died, and it took me a couple of years to understand who I am. But at 16, I knew exactly what I wanted to do and where I was going. And that got me going. So you set your goals. It's actually better to write them down, share them with your family, share them with the loved ones, keep it and check it every year. Check, what did I write down? Am I still on track? Because it's so easy to lose focus. Number two is determination. That perseverance I talked about earlier, the tenacity, the strength to go that distance, to work extremely hard. The picture I show you is a guy getting up early in the morning, taking his matoke to market. He could have taken one bunch or two and come back for more, but he puts on as much as he can take and takes it to the brink. That is determination. The journey is about tenacity. Just from wherever he has harvested or picked the matoke, or bananas to take them to the market. That takes that strength of character. And that's what you've got to start with quite early, because it takes time for it to be embedded. You need to work hard, and the culture of getting up every day should be a habit. It should be a routine, a normal thing. You can't be sleeping and say, okay, today's a weekend, I'm going to sleep until midday, and Sunday I sleep until 1 o'clock and have a brunch. Those are habits for people who are lazy. Okay, a few people succeed and they have those characteristics, but nearly all the people who succeed in life have got a culture of getting up early. Start when the sun is rising. In Africa, we are gifted. The sun rises every single day. We don't have places like UK or Europe where the sun can come in late in the afternoon and then by 4 o'clock, it's gone. So we've got to get up early, form those habits early. And you've got to manage your time effectively, because time is the currency you have, especially when you are a youth. It's the most valuable currency. As you grow older, it becomes more and more precious. Now, if you've got a job, a day job, and it starts at 8 o'clock, if you manage your time well, like the lady there, she gets up at 6:30, tenders her garden, make sure she has watered it before she goes to her conventional job. Nearly everybody in this world, especially after COVID, has learned that you need to have a side hustle. If you don't have a side hustle, a source of income other than that job, what happens on rainy days when you go into a lockdown? And it can take so long. What if this lockdown is extended until January 2022? What would we do? You need to find something that brings in a bit of income. Survival is all that matters. And if you didn't learn a lesson in the first shutdown, make sure you don't miss the lesson in this second one, because there might be a third shutdown coming. Number 3, you need to embrace technology. Most people think of technology as a sophisticated way. I'm talking about the most basic things. If you have a mobile phone, yes, it's good to start with an entry-level basic phone, but try and get a smartphone. It will be so much more user-friendly. And also, once you learn to use it properly, it will be a tool for survival. The internet, the power of the internet can harness so many things and give you information, help you make informed decisions because of the mobile phone. The move from the hose, the traditional hoe, to the tractors. We need to embrace tractors. They are far too few. Even in places like northern Uganda, which have got beautiful, vast, flat land, there are hardly any tractors. And that land is virgin, so beautiful, untapped. We need to embrace a culture of greenhouses, especially in the urban areas. Small patches of land, 1/2 acre, 1 acre, can be so profitable if you have a greenhouse, especially if you do some irrigation and use a bit of fertilizer. There's a lot of money in vegetables, in fruits, in farming within 1 acre, fish ponds, prawns, different types of seafood that you can actually culture in the aquaculture area within our space. And lastly, I talk about things like a washing machine. And somebody might wonder, why a washing machine? Aren't you talking about snobs? You'll see more about this a bit later. I want to end with the washing machine because most of our women and youth spend so much time washing their clothes manually. I know women who first do the washing at home manually, and then they go to work to get their job done. They wash for their husband, they wash for their children. Sometimes they have a maid, but still they oversee the washing or the ironing. And these are just mundane, time-consuming jobs. We've got to avoid them. So when I talk about the development of human capital being key, what do I mean? I mean, not everybody is born with the gifts or the privileges that we see around us, but everybody has to make a choice. That is the burden left upon us, whether it is biblically, where the Lord has left us the burden of choice, or in the real world. Even if you're an atheist, you have to make choices. And the choices you make affect your chances in life. And the chances you take affect the changes you will have. So these 3 C's are very important. If you're going to have a change in your life, and you talk about socioeconomic transformation, you need to embrace the right choices and take the chances. Because if you don't take a chance, you don't take a risk, you remain where you are. Things just will not change. And don't let your past dictate your future. Just because you're not come from a privileged family doesn't mean you will not become privileged. In my story, I lost nearly everything, yet I was raised in a privileged family. And we lost everything and came back to zero. But I've had to work my way inch by inch, 1 brick at a time, 1 day at a time, to where I am today. And that is because I did not allow what happened to me in the past to dictate my future. You are the architect of your future. It's in your hands. You've got to be responsible for your own destiny. It's all up to you. Then I talk about Kaizen. Kaizen is a Japanese term that is used for consistent, continuous, incremental improvement. Never settle for what is good as being good enough. You think you've arrived, continuously make small steps, incremental steps to see how can you provide your service better? How can you provide a product better? It's got to be continuous improvement. If not in quality, in quantity, then in price. These are things you've got to do. When you're building a business, think about how do you develop what I call DSS, a business that is disruptive, a business that is built with systems. Once it's disrupted, what is the standard? It's got to have systems behind it. Once you get the systems working, then you scale it. That's when you become really successful, building businesses that can scale. Now remember, when you're developing your human capital, and that's a big problem we have, especially in Uganda, delegation of authority does not necessarily mean delegation of responsibility. It's good if you're to grow. You cannot do everything as a one-man show. So you need to empower the people around you. Build a useful team, a team that will win. The team that won Germany yesterday was an English team because they played like a team. And that's what made them win. Not that Germany was not playing like a team, but when you're not a team, you are not recognized. So many of us all over the world were watching the matches live because it was a powerful team playing against another powerful team. Teamwork is important, which means you must delegate authority. But remember, the buck stops with you. You cannot delegate responsibility. Lastly, because I'm trying to keep it very tight, frugality. Frugality or stoicism. You've got to watch your cash burn and your expenditure. Being rich is not about how much money you make, as much as it is how much money you save from what you have made. If you spend all that you have made, there is no point. You will never really accumulate money. The principle of accumulation is making much more than you spend. That cash burn is so important. Unfortunately, when you get a promotion, your spending patterns change. You move into a bigger house, you buy a better car, you go to a better restaurant, your lifestyle changes. And so all of us are gullible to that. And it's an entitlement. You worked hard, you deserve it. But being frugal is very important. And you will notice the people in Asia and a few lately in Europe drive small cars. They are very conscious of costs. They are very conscious of fuel. They are very conscious of all the expenditure that they can avoid, and they work within their budgets. Whereas if you look at our brothers in the extreme West who drive big cars, don't care about fuel, they have credit cards, everything is on credit, they spend so much more. Now, where are we in Uganda? Most of the people who make a lot of money spend it as quickly as they have made it. And they just can't resist. And we've seen them, the guys who rise from nowhere with a lot of money and they start dishing it out. You see them dressed in white clothes and they're having white parties and they make people line up and they're just doling out cash for free. And you see where they are, how long they'll last. You wonder where this money even comes from. You've got to make money and it's hard, but you've got to keep money and it's a lot harder to keep money. So you must realize that what you want and what you need are two different things. And you've got to make sure that you do not mistake the two. Focus on what you want, otherwise you lose the things that you need. So to succeed in business or as an SME, you need to have grit. And I break grit down to having guts, being resilient, showing initiatives, and having the tenacity. The tenacity is very important too. And tenacity is slightly different from resilience. An initiative is something you're always sharpening. It's like sharpening your pencil, sharpening your sword if you're going to war, making sure your gun is well oiled because it's a war out there. And to go to a war, you need guts. You've got to be brave. You've got to be able to take a chance. That's what business is all about. So when I talk about resilience, what do I really mean? I mean going the distance. Too many people start up and they mean to go the distance, but they just don't. I've often used the example. If you say I'm going to jog from here to Entebbe Airport, it's about 26 miles on the main road, maybe 40 on the express highway. You can do it actually in one day. But how many people can actually do it? They set off from, let's say, Sheraton and start running. By the time they're at Clock Tower, they are distracted. I can't do it, or they are turning off. They reach the Makindi roundabout, Nakula somewhere, they are distracted, or Kajansi, but they do not go the distance, even though they are assured there's a prize at the end of the day in Entebbe for them. And it is physically doable, especially by the youth. So going the distance is so important. I see so many people who build houses, they never finish them. They start a business, they never get all the parts together. They do things and they never complete them. You are building a hotel, it reaches halfway, it gets stuck. and it takes 15 or 20 years to finish it. Even very big tall hotels like the Aya Hotel, it took almost 20 years for it to be built. It was supposed to be built at the time of Choko. Yes, there are justifiable reasons why things are not done. I struggled to finish Sky's Hotel. It was supposed to be built in 2 years. It took almost 3.5 years. These things happen, but you must go the distance. You must have a plan and you must be determined to make it to the end. Then I'm going to talk a little bit about focus, because that's one thing I see. Too many SMEs start in one direction, they look around, somebody else is doing better than them, and they are distracted. When you write down your objectives, when you make a blueprint, when you set your goals, put them down and stick to them. In fact, I like the saved people who we call the barokore, because when you announce that I'm now saved, that means I'll not cheat on my wife, I'll not be in the bars every day, I'll not be doing certain things. You change completely. And these people are witnessing you so that they can police you indirectly to help you to stay on the straight and narrow. So I urge people to focus on their goals. Tell your goals to your family and make sure that they see you live those goals. That's how you stay focused. Otherwise, it is so easy to get distracted. You set out to grow bananas, matoke. It's a good business, but you see your neighbor harvesting coffee one day and say, oh, I'm supposed to be in coffee. You can't do all of them. You've got to focus on what you're doing. If you've got the capacity to do other things, by all means, because diversification can also be good, but do it with a plan. Don't just do things on impulse or simultaneously. People have talked a lot about finance, and that's the biggest problem for both women and for the youth. Let me assure you, also for the men, it has always been a problem. We have always been beholden to looking for money. Now, wherever you get this finance, it will never be enough. Whether you live in Japan, in the USA, in the UK, or in Uganda, or in Burundi, you will never have enough money. Everybody's looking for a bit more money. Now, in the past, we were exploited, and the slave trade lasted almost 400 years. And because we were exploited so badly during that period, the Western culture, the Western world benefited so much from our human capital. And it's not coincidence that today the topic is human capital. The forum that's organized us, who brought us together, is about human capital, because it's a very important resource for success. You need land, you need labor, you need capital, you need entrepreneurship, you need innovation. You need these things to be working together. Now, if you don't have the labor, especially if you can have it free, and they took us for a ride for so long. Today, it is finance that we're looking at, but finance also holds labor down. So you can be trapped if you do not raise your money in a smart way. My advice to you, because my time is very short, is stick to the banks. Don't go to the money lenders. Don't go to the sharks. Be careful about these venture capital funds that come in like angel investors, but then before you realize it, they've taken your company. Be careful of the small print. Get an expert to guide you. Get a mentor to help you so that you do not fall in the debt trap, because it's a very hard trap to get out of. It's a method that is tried and tested. It can work, especially if you're investing in long-term ventures like property. I've got a lot of exposure to property, to hotels. And so I work with debt. And with my level of financial literacy, I thought I could manage, but there's still challenges every single day. So I warn people, stick to banks. EcoBank, the main sponsor of this initiative this week, this year and in the past, are a solid bank. Not just in one country, they are a Pan-African bank. They've done incredible work. I've done some business with them, and I have a lot of respect for them. They do things in a manner that is sustainable, is developmental. They really focus on the African continent, and they want to see us change. So keep talking to your banks. They may give you conditions. They may look hard. Work with them. Begin step by step. You will get there. Women and the youth, we need policies by government to help us, get them more involved. And the government has made huge strides in this area. The problem is our culture has not moved at the pace at which government is moving. Somebody talked about 75% of the members of parliament being men. In Uganda, we have changed that drastically. Then the percentage of men in cabinet, we have changed that drastically. I think 43% today are women in cabinet. So we are changing things, and government is changing, but is our culture changing fast enough? The culture has got to change, where we respect women as our equal partners. That gender equality is not actually being implemented. And it comes from our background, from our family unit, from our clan unit, from culture, where we see the girl child as a lesser human being than the man. We've got to change that. And it's really deep in our culture. And we can't leave it the religious leaders and the classrooms. It's got to be by our clan leaders. It's got to be the heads of each family. Every family should see that the girl child is as equal in importance as the boy child. When I see people's wills, they're always bequeathing everything to the boys. The girls will get married and go and join another family. A girl child is equally important. We need to empower these girls and make sure that they count in our society. As I come towards the end of my presentation, I must emphasize a culture of savings. The societies that have changed, especially in the last 40, 50 years, especially the Asian societies, when I look at Thailand, I look at Malaysia, I look at India, I look at Singapore, South Korea, they have a culture of saving. When you save, it will enable investments. When you have investments, that's how you get growth. There is no shortcut to that. If everything you earn is spent and you can get credit, then you live a good quality life, but it is thin. It's like walking on ice. At any time, the ice will crack and you can fall through. You need to think about building a culture of saving. I'm not going to give you a number. Some people save 10%, some people 40%, some people 50%. A big business like Umeme says, reinvests in its business 50% and cannot declare a dividend more than 50%, because we have to save money to grow the business. A small company like Simba does the same. We try to save some money to keep reinvesting in the same business or diversifying our portfolio, but we cannot spend all the money you make in any given year. So think about it. Think about the tax implications of your business as you grow. Don't be scared of being registered. I encourage everybody to register with Revenue Authority and with Uganda Registration and Bureau Services. If you don't make a profit, you don't pay tax. Remember that. And they only tax a certain percentage of your profit. You can go for 5 years not making profits that are worth declaring anything, and they'll respect it. File your returns. The day you start making profit, start making your contribution. You have to give back to society. There's a responsibility. You can't work in Kampala, in Uganda, make money and not want to give some back to the country in which you have earned this money. We've seen the fights that some of the companies have had. So I said I would talk a little bit about the Industrial Revolution. The first one was about muscle to steam. The second one was really about electricity. And that was around 1900 when electricity was democratized in America, and then it went through the rest of the world. So most countries got electricity. Until about 1940, 1930s, in Europe, people were still very backward. All the women were washing clothes for their husbands manually. They'd also go down to the stream or the nearest source of water to wash clothes until electricity came. Electricity changed the world. That's the second industrial revolution. Now, Uganda, we've been talking about socio-economic transformation for the last 20 years, but it was a lie. It was a lie. It was never going to happen. Without enough electricity, you cannot transform your people completely. Yes, you made small steps. Quality of life has improved. A bit of piped water here, a bit of roads here, but you didn't have enough electricity. That's why I got an interest into electricity and I set it up. When I got into electricity and then I became the chairman of Umeme, I set up power plants because I saw the key role electricity plays in life. We need to have an abundance of reliable, affordable electricity. Once that happens, other things can fall in place. Before that happens, whatever you are doing, you will have limitations. So you cannot move unless you have electricity. Now, for the first time with Karuma and Isimba, Uganda has got excess electricity. In the last 50 years, we only had 500 megawatts of electricity, and we grew the demand over 50 years. Now we have 1,000 megawatts, and they expect us to grow the demand in 5 years to absorb that 1,000 megawatts. It's going to take time, but hopefully industrialization will happen much quicker. Now, these benefits of having white goods, these cannot be made in bulk from afar. They can be made cheaply in China, yes, but then shipping them is not economical. So we need to have fridges, cookers, washing machines made nearer to the market. Otherwise, it's not economical to bring them here. In South Africa, the industry of white goods has really taken off, and they have cut through because they had electricity, much as they are struggling with electricity today. But without these white goods, a society does not transform. All these apartments that are coming up, rising, high risers, are going to have a fridge, a TV, a cooking machine, an oven. Some of these basic white goods must be there. So long as there's housing, there's growth, there's urbanization, these goods are necessary. Now, the benefits of a large market like the East African community, now that the DRC is trying to join us in the next 2 weeks or 3 weeks, they're trying to join the East African community. We shall have an addressable market of 255 million people. Now, that's a sizable market. It's worthwhile setting up a factory. Not everybody will buy your fridge or your cooker or your washing machine today or tomorrow, but it's now worthwhile to set up those industries because you can address that market. Out of the 255, even if you take 10%, that's 25.5 million people. buying your equipment. Even if you take 1%, that's 2 million people buying your equipment. So these industries become viable. Other industries like the chemical industry is very important. When you look at textiles business, the dyeing industry, it changed, it transformed Asia, Malaysia, Bangladesh, all those countries because of textile industry, the apparel industry. Cosmetics and makeup, pharmaceuticals, fertilizers, all these things come from the chemical industry. These things are going to begin happening today. Now I want to end by asking the team there to play the video, which will emphasize my point of technology. And I thank all of you for listening to me, and good luck in whatever you do, especially those SMEs that are out there. This man called Hans Rosling is a gentleman I invited to Uganda. He had agreed to come and make a presentation to the president here at a presidential investment roundtable. Unfortunately, we postponed the date, so he couldn't come. And a year later, he had died. So he passed away a few years ago, but he was a brilliant professor and a mentor to me. He's one of the guys I really believe everybody should watch this and see the power of how we shall free the youth and the women. Thank you.
I was only 4 years old when I saw my mother load a washing machine for the very first time in her life. That was a great day for my mother. My mother and father had been saving money for years to be able to buy that machine. And the first day it was going to be used, even Grandma was invited to see the machine. And Grandma was even more excited. Throughout her life, she had been heating water with firewood, and she had hand-washed laundry for 7 children. And now she was going to watch electricity do that work. My mother carefully opened the door, and she loaded the laundry into the machine, like this. And then when she closed the door, Grandma said, no, let me push the button. And Grandma pushed the button, and she said, oh, fantastic, I want to see this, give me a share, I want to see it. And she sat down in front of the machine, and she watched the entire washing program. She was mesmerized. To my grandmother, the washing machine was a miracle. Today, in Sweden and other rich countries, people are using so many different machines. Look, the homes are full of machines. I can't even name them all, you know. And they also, when they want to travel, they use flying machines that can take them to remote destinations. And yet in the world, there are so many people who still heat the water on fire, and they cook their food on fire. Sometimes they don't even have enough food. And they live below the poverty line. There are 2 billion fellow human beings who live on less than $2 a day. And the richest people over there, there's 1 billion people, and they live above what I call the airline, because they have spent more than $80 a day, you know, on their consumption. But this is just 1, 2, 3 billion people. And obviously there are 7 billion people in the world. So there must be 1, 2, 3, 4 billion people more who live in between the poverty line and the airline. They have electricity. But the question is, how many have washing machines? I've done a scrutiny of market data, and I found that indeed the washing machine has penetrated below the airline, and today there's an additional 1 billion people up there who live above the wash line. And they consume for more than $40 per day. So 2 billion have access to washing machine, and the remaining 5 billion, how do they wash? Or to be more precise, how do most of the women in the world wash? Because it remains a hard work for women to wash. They wash like this, by hand. It's a hard, time-consuming labor, which they have to do for hours every week. And sometimes they also have to bring water from far away to do the laundry at home. Or they have to bring the laundry away to a stream far off. And they want the washing machine. They don't want to spend such a large part of their life doing this hard work with so relatively low productivity. And there's nothing different in their wish than it was from my grandma. Look here, 2 generations ago in Sweden, picking water from the stream, heating with firewood and washing like that. They want the washing machine in exactly the same way. But when I lecture to environmentally concerned students, they tell me, no, everybody in the world cannot have cars and washing machines. How can we tell this woman that she ain't going to have a washing machine? And then I ask my students, I've asked them over the last 2 years, I've asked, how many of you doesn't use a car? And some of them proudly raise their hand, and say, I don't use a car. And then I put the really tough question. How many of you hand wash your jeans and your bed sheet? And no one raised their hand. Even the hardcore in the green movement use washing machine. So how come something that everyone used and they think others will not stop it? What is special with this? I had to do an analysis about the energy use in the world. Here we are. Look here. You see the 7 billion people up there? The air people, the wash people, the bulb people, and the fire people. 1 unit like this is an energy unit of fossil fuel, oil, coal, or gas. That's what most of the electricity and the energy in the world is. And it's 12 units used in the entire world. And the richest 1 billion, they use 6 of them. Half of the energy is used by 1/7 of the world population. And these ones who have washing machine, but not the house full of other machines, they use 2. And this group use 3, 1 each. And they just have electricity. And over there, they don't even use 1 each. That makes 12 of them. But the main concern for the environmentally interested students, and they are right, is about the future. What are the trends? If we just prolong the trends without any really advanced analysis to 2050, there are 2 things that can increase the energy use. First, population growth. Second, economic growth. Population growth will mainly occur among the poorest people here because they have high child mortality and they have many children per woman, and that you will get 2 extra, but that won't change the energy use very much. What will happen is economic growth. The best off here in the emerging economies, I call them the New East. They will jump the airline, whop, they will say, and they will start to use as much as the Old West are doing already. And these people, they want the washing machine. I told you, they'll go there and they will double the energy use, and we hope that the poor people will get into the electric light and they will get 2-child family, will have a stop in population growth, but the total energy consumption will increase to 22 units. And these 22 units, still the richest people use most of them. So what's needed to be done? Because the risk, the high probability of climate change is real. It's real. Of course, they must be more energy efficient. They must change behavior to some way. They must also start to produce green energy, much more green energy. But until they have the same energy consumption per person, they shouldn't give advice to others what to do and what not to do. Here we can get more green energy all over. This is what we hope may happen. It's a real challenge in the future. But I can assure you that this woman in the favela in Rio, she wants a washing machine. She's very happy about her Minister of Energy that provided electricity to everyone. So happy that she even voted for her, And she became Dilma Rousseff, the president-elect of one of the biggest democracies in the world, moving from Minister of Energy to president. If you have democracy, people will vote for washing machines. They love them. And what's the magic with them? My mother explained the magic with this machine the very, very first day. She said, now, Hans, we have loaded the laundry. The machine will make the work. And now we can go to the library. Because this is the magic. You load the laundry. And what do you get out of the machine? You get books out of the machines. Children's books, and mother got time to read for me. She loved this. I got the ABC. This is why I started my career as professor, when my mother had time to read for me. And she also got books for herself. She managed to study English and learn that as a foreign language. And she read so many novels, so many different novels here, and we really loved this machine. And what we said, my mother and me, thank you, industrialization. Thank you, steel mill. Thank you, power station. And thank you, chemical processing industry that gave us time to read books. Thank you very much.